For Germans, the print book is really important. I just realized how important this is when I saw Joanna Penn talking about her Kickstarter on her pilgrimage book, and she said that this was the first time she actually really paid attention to the look and feel of the print book she published.
And this was super interesting for us to hear because just starting with publishing, we paid a lot of attention to the print books, which is the reason for that is Germans love print books. We love them dearly, and we have a great detailed look at them. And this is why we talk about them in this episode, because if you want to become an international best-selling author in Germany, you really got to pay attention to the prints.
Absolutely. Hi, we are Andrea and
Freya.
And we are on our way to become international best-selling authors.
And we are taking you along for this ride.
Welcome to this show.
Hi.
This is our second episode, and as we promised in the first episode in this first season of this podcast, we are taking you with us into the German market, because that's where that's our home, and that's where we know stuff.
And since we are talking to writers and, people who want to become international best-selling authors, we have to talk about the actual product we are, kind of focusing ourselves on, which is the actual book. So we are talking about the print version, the one with the paper that you can flip through with all the letters in it. And so Andrea and I have been looking at German books and English books, and what we have discovered some things, right?
Because when it comes to translating books, we had the misconception at first that this only applies to the language, but that's wrong. It also applies to, as Freya said, the book itself.
The book layout.
The book layout.
Exactly.
And we made the discovery that English books and German books look, feel,
and smell. Smell!
Say that again. And smell?
And smell very differently.
Yes, they do. For German,
like your nose,
and
your nose knows
really,
whether. I'm sorry.
And you really have to know, as a non-German, that for Germans the quality is a real deal breaker.
Exactly. Germans, we love books. So, and sometimes, and I'm guilty of that totally, we sometimes just buy books we buy books just because of the quality of the printing. Because, when they feel nice in your hands, when they smell really good, and when the cover is nice. Exactly.
The industry knows that, and the readers know that, and German readers are just used to having a good feeling in their hands, a good,
and in their noses,
touchy feelings and a nice smell and stuff when they buy a book. So, why are you laughing?
Because I love this. I don't know. I just realized that how important the smell of a book is to me. I've never really thought about this, but it's super important to me that a book smells nice.
Yes, it is. And I actually have already not read a book because of the smell, because I didn't like the smell.
The thing is, if you want to enter the German market and have a very successful book out there, you need to have a really nice print version. And so we are here to tell you everything we have learned about the differences between books in the English language and books in German. And there are some key differences that you have to keep in mind, and we are here to share what we figured out.
We want to point out the 3 biggest differences, but then after that, we have a lot more we just discussed briefly. But these first 3 differences we considered the most important, and we considered those which you really, really have to keep in mind when you're publishing into the German market, into the German print book market. So Freya, what's the first?
The first one is actually the book layout. So everything that's inside the book. You will notice, and I have done this, I've just ventured into the bookstore and bought two books, the same book, one in English, one in German. And once you open the book, you see that there are certain differences in which the book is layouted. So the entire appearance of the text is already from the first second different.
So what Freya means with the book layout is in Germany we don't only like to look at a book from the outside. But when opening a book, not only the smell is important, but I would describe this as I want to have the feeling of space. And this actually means that the text is not squeezed onto the pages, but that the lines and the words and the paragraphs, that they can breathe.
We are much more gracious with space, when it comes to the page. So we are...
Even though this might be changing because paper prices are just exploding.
That's true.
This might change, but at this point right now, people are used to certain specifics about the book layout. And this is, for instance, the font size. So the size of the letters, which is actually 14 points for me. What is it for you, Freya?
Well, I think it's really important because when choosing a font and the size in which you want to have your words printed, the key thing is not to squeeze as much text as possible on the page, but the key is to make it as readable as possible. Maybe because Germans tend to use long words or something, but I think like the focus that we Germans put on when you put the text on the page is that the text is as easily as the most easily readable. If that makes sense grammatically. But you get my point. So it should, it should be easy to read. Very, very easy to read. You should not struggle.
Yeah, you shouldn't struggle, and you shouldn't get tired that early after reading. So because when you have to read really tiny letters all the time, then your eyes just get tired and you stop reading. Maybe this is because Germans read so much and their eyes are, I don't know, so stressed by reading so much.
Or it's just a cultural thing, because we are just not used to this. It's a cultural thing, because we are not used to this.
Yes.
We are used to very nicely edited and layouted books where, space is something that is good on a page, that is not a waste of space. Space is good. And
yes.
and this is one of the reasons why German books, even though they are not necessarily longer than the English books, but they are much thicker. If you look at the spines of the books, you will notice that German books tend to have broader spines. This is one of the reasons. And another difference when it comes to the text layout is, I mentioned it before shortly, is what font you choose. When you choose a font in German, you want to have a serif font. You want to have because also this adds to readability. Serif fonts tend to be more easily read.
Serif fonts are the fonts with these tiny little bits of lines next to the actual letter. Just to
with
you probably know that because you're an author, but just to make that clear. Which
exactly.
Probably not necessary. Yes. So because there are studies that the eye can fix on serif fonts more easily, and it's just less tiring to read a text.
I think this is like kind of the main giveaway when the key difference when that it comes to book layouting. German books, the key or the thing to focus on is make it as readable as possible. Reading should, just flow, and you should not struggle to read at all. And everything adds into that point, basically. And,
even though the font type, that's actually only a thing for fiction books, because in non-fiction we use the sans serif font.
That's true.
Type.
But
mostly.
Reading isn't supposed to be fun when you read fiction books, I suppose. No. When you read nonfiction books, you tend to read those not for fun, I guess. Well, at least this is true for me. I know people do.
It depends on the nonfiction. On the topic. Well, it depends on the topic.
That's true.
I do read books about sailing and stuff, and that's fun to read them. Okay, so
whatever floats your boat.
talking readability and space on the pages, that's not only true for the font or for the letters and the words itself, but for the space between them. So there's the space between the lines. There's the space on the margins. So we need at least enough margin to put our thumb on the edge of the page, and above and beneath the text, we need space. I don't know why actually, but because there's space around the book. Well, you could just put the book onto a white paper, and you would have the same white space. But we do that.
That's us. I don't know why, but the thing is, it looks really nice. So if you open a German book,
looks nice.
The text layout looks really, really nice.
So it's really, you open the book and you will just already like, that's just, it's not just about the story, it's just about arriving in the book, kind of.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, it's like, they are
It's
magical.
not a struggle. It's not a struggle to open a book and to read. It's really like a wellness day. I don't know. At least that's how it feels for me. And the story is good.
And actually, this is actually a really nice point because, talking about what it feels like to open a book, this kind of leads us right to the next big difference that we have noticed between English and German
nicely
books.
Put.
Thank you. Thank you. I was like, oh my God. So when the thing is the paper. No, we didn't come up. What we found was the paper is very different.
What we discovered. Yes, that sounds really nice.
Oh, we are explorers.
What
explorers
did we
of books.
discover?
So as I mentioned before, I went to the bookstore and bought the same book, one in English, one in German. And the first thing I noticed that the book was very, very much thicker. The German book was than the English one. And I wondered why, because then I looked at the number of pages, and the number of pages in the German book was only slightly higher than in the English book. And so I wondered, why is there such a difference in spine? I can show you right now, but the spine is double the size. In the German spine is double the size than the English one. Yeah, and so I wondered why the difference. And then I realized as I opened the book and, went with my thumb through the pages, the paper is different. So German paper distinguishes the paper that's used in German books is very it feels and is of a different kind than you will find in English books.
And
right?
this leads to a certain feel of the book as well. It's not only the weight, but it's we actually have the intention to teach you some German words in this podcast.
Now it goes. Here it goes.
And one of them is Labrigkeit. And
are you sure this is even a word? Have you looked it up in the Duden, which is the basically the Oxford Dictionary? Is
no,
that a
I
word?
didn't. Maybe it's just a word I came up with, but it is a German word because labrig is a word, and when you have a German adjective. A German how
don't
word.
ask me.
A how word.
A word that describes something, right? So you get the point.
Yes.
I get.
Then you can turn it. Normally, you can turn it into a noun by just putting kite after it. So that now we have a German teaching lesson here.
Yeah,
And so Labrigkeit. That is when something is not steady. When something is not hard, when it's more soft, when it's softer, very soft, like really, really soft. Is that what I want to say?
I have
so when you
no idea.
Or when you can bend a book very easily. I think that's it. You can.
I think that's the thing you want to go for.
Yes, that is.
They bend. It's the question whether how easy
and
the book bends.
And we're talking paperbacks here. We're not talking hardcovers, by the way. German paperbacks are not that easily to bend. Yes.
And the thing why is I think the paper that tends to be used in German books, and this might also change because the paper prices are going up, but the paper that is used in German books is a lot thicker, and it's very tight, it's very firm, I think you can say,
and it's heavier. And you have that, and what goes with that is you have that. I think it's 90 gram. I don't know how many pounds. I don't know. What is the tiniest size gram? It is gram.
Gram.
Is that true?
Gram. Mm-hmm.
ounces or something.
100%.
Should be.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's gram.
Yeah, but ounces belongs to pounds, right? I don't know.
Ounces belongs to pounds and gram belongs to kilogram.
Yes, exactly. So the ounces per square. Oh my god, I hate that. Why do we have the metric system? Well, doesn't matter. The paper is heavier and it's thicker, and this is why the book, the total of the pages that make the book, that's actually. And I think it's not only the pages itself, but the cover as well. Because the cover is thicker in Germany as well, for German books. When you publish via KDP, when you publish your paperback via KDP, you can go with the standard book format, which is, I think it's the standard book format in the English market, but it's not for German. Which is funny because I published my first book
funny, right?
via
we have
KDP.
We have slightly different book sizes. That's true.
Yes, and
which might be because we use the metric system, by the way.
Yeah, this might be the reason. But I started with KDP, and now I print my books myself, via a printing service, not myself, but I still use that format because my first book had that format, and I wanted to have all my books to have the same format. So. Yeah, it's not the size may differ, but then again, to me it seems that everybody's just using its own format for size, because I have so many different books in my shelf that have so many different sizes actually, and even for the standard paperback version or format, it can be 120 millimeters times 190, or it can be 125 times 190 or something, and so it's so different. I think it's not even it's nothing you really have to bother about, and that's actually all these reasons actually make a difference that is really important, and that is pricing, because the heavier paper and the size and the steadiness and all that stuff, this actually is more expensive. German books are more expensive than English books, even though the authors they tend to be, even though the authors don't earn more from them.
The third big difference between German and English speaking books is how the cover, the book cover is actually done,
designed,
or how the book presents itself to the reader for the first time. So
what's put on the cover?
Basically not much. In German books, not much. I've noticed, when I looked at like English speaking covers, you have the title, you have the author's name, but then you also have testimonials, you have lots of art, and they are really pretty, but they tend to be a lot. And I think when Germans look for books, we turn out to be kind of minimalistic.
But then again, the genres on it, and I just read on a blog where she said something which could be translated to or put to, well, Germans are so stupid, they have to be told what the genre of the book is, because they cannot see it from the picture of the book or the.
That's not really that's not insulting at all, but okay. Okay, here's the gist of it. So it's what is put on the cover of a German book is pretty much standardized, so you don't really divert from what is put up there. So you have the title, you have the author's name, that's a given. What you also have, what you usually don't have on English books, is you have the publisher's logo on the cover, which is important for self-publishers. If you have a logo, put it on the cover. It looks more professional. A book without a publisher logo on it doesn't look professional to the German book market. And
this is important, and why this is important will be discussed in our next podcast about the self-publishing status quo in Germany. And this might be a hint that you have that German readers like to see a publisher's logo. But yeah, that's for the next episode.
Exactly. And by the way, one more word to the genre. So sometimes you put the genre on the book cover if it's not obvious from the book cover that you, for instance, it's a thriller or a novel for instance. So when it comes to the genre, what you will often see is, for instance, that you put the word Roman, which means novel, on the book, and sometimes maybe something more. But this is mainly to show Germans that this is a work of fiction and not a work of nonfiction. I think this is the main thing when it comes to the genre. So we are not stupid. We just like to know whether we buy a work of fiction or a nonfiction book.
But that's funny, isn't it? It's the first time this really gets clear to me. I mean, we see whether this is a novel or a non-fiction book. Why is it on the cover?
I don't know. I've never thought about this, actually, until we started doing research for this podcast.
Yes. We just take these things for given, and then we just... Okay. As Freya said, we normally don't put testimonials on the cover because we are so humble, and we I think, well, for me it's just like we don't like to brag, we don't want to brag publicly. I don't know, but there's one thing we really like to brag about, and this is if our book got onto the Spiegel bestseller list, which is like the only really important list in Germany, and it's really difficult to get on it, and you
it's
have
like the New York Times bestseller list. Like, if you're on there, you want to let people know, and this is the same with the Spiegel
I think
bestseller
for the status that's true, but I think it's more easy to get on a Spiegel bestseller list because the New York Times bestseller list, as far as I heard, it's somebody decides who gets on it, and for the Spiegel bestseller list, it's really about sales numbers. And actually, it's so when you have a Spiegel bestseller list, you become you get that really beautiful orange and white sticker, which is really
so beautiful is in quotation marks. You get that, right? So
yes.
I don't know if this is so beautiful.
It's just ugly, but because we are so trained to this, it looks beautiful.
Yes.
I just took off these stickers from other books and put it on my own books, just for dreaming big and stuff, and it looks beautiful, even though I don't like orange. So.
And you sent me a picture of it, and my heart skipped a beat. And I was really wondering in that moment, is that actually true? And it looked so nice. It looked, even though the sticker is really not that pretty, because I don't know, unless you were into orange, then go ahead. But if you're not as much into orange, and this particular orange, which looks kind of dated, and I don't know, but it's. Yeah.
But for German readers, this is a quality sign. When your book has been on the Spiegel bestseller list, it says it's a good book, and people tend to buy it.
And you have to scream it out into the world,
yes.
And you really have to. And the cool thing is, when you have been on this list once, whenever you put out another book, you can add also a sticker which doesn't say Spiegel bestseller, but Spiegel bestseller author, and.
Yes.
This is really nice, because then the book looks like it's super duper successful, even though it might not be, but it's from a successful author, so it gets a lot of legitimacy from that.
So here's a special tip. If you have enough money, then you can just buy yourself onto that list, meaning you could just buy like I think Mark Dawson did that, right? You can just buy like 3,000 of your books. Yeah, and get into the list, and then you have that sticker, and you can put it on each and every book you ever write and you've ever written.
Okay.
Yes. So these are our 3 big things, and we promised some minor things we will not get into as deeply, because we promised to record short episodes, and this one's already not short anymore.
Okay, so I'm just going through the list. So we have a few of those already covered. Like, we talked about the text layout. And the thing on this list is, though, that German books tend to have a more traditional text layout when it comes to, for instance, on which page does a new chapter begin, and how is a chapter opening, and how that looks. So we go a more traditional route, which is compliant with the text font that we use, which is also more traditional.
Yes, and then there's the book binding, and this that's actually for hardcover books, because Germans like to buy hardcover books, especially for fantasy and new adult and genres like that. Because they just love to get in this world, in these worlds and into these stories. And then the binding is really important, because a lot of these books are sewn bound and not glued together. Like the pages are not glued together, but they are bound with a thread. But that's something special. You know, if you want to put out a special edition, then it should have a sewn bound bookcase.
And this is, we're talking hardcovers. This is not done to paperbacks. This is done to hardcovers. But they look really nice. They look like old books from the start and have this magical touch, kind of. And then we also have on the list end papers. German books often do have decorated end papers. And I think English books tend not to have them. But, you know, as said before, we are all into, like, the whole book is like a work of art, basically. And so the end paper is also oftentimes has decorations on them.
Yes, and sometimes they're just in a different color, or you have an illustration on it, or they're just white papers, just to, you know, have a second protective stuff cover around. I actually don't know what this is, but it's nice. It's paper wasting, but it's nice. Okay, it's my and then we have dust jackets for the hardcovers again, or sometimes even for paperbacks. Sometimes they are for paperbacks, but these that's, as for the binding, it's more for special editions, I guess. Even though, Freya, for your hardcovers you have dust jackets, right?
Yes, I do, and they are beautiful. Well, and then there's also this thing which it seems minor, but, you know, just something to consider, is the paper color, actually. So German books often have cream-colored paper. I always use cream-colored paper, and we rarely use white. For whatever reasons, I guess because of this whole feeling that this cream-colored paper creates. And I think, Andrea, you heard something about that specifically from Joanna Penn, didn't you?
Yes, I just heard her talking about it, and she wasn't really aware that this was a thing, cream-colored paper, I guess, because she's always been printing her books on white-colored paper. And I do that for my non-fiction books, but not for my fiction books. And I think it's the contrast between the black and the white of the paper, and it's for the eyes. It's easier to read, and it's about readability and not tiring your eyes. I think it's the contrast is just more extensive for the eyes. I don't know what the reason is.
Yeah, I think the letters pop out more, and I think it's more tiring for the eyes to look at this constantly.
Yes, and it's not so cozy. It's like having this huge amount of light in a room, or having a fire burning.
Candle.
A candle burning.
Nice.
Yes, that's nice. Then we have bookmarks. German books often have a thread. You call it like that? I don't know.
It's really nice. I have no idea what to call them in English. In English, you have this little thread basically hanging out, especially if you have a sewn book, like a hardcover, and they have this thread hanging out, which is blue or red or some fancy color, basically. And so you can put it into your book, and it's a bookmark. So you always know which page you were on. And it's really nice. So you don't have to have an external bookmark. The book has one on its own. And it also adds up to this.
You don't have to put a pocket of paper tissues into the book.
Do you do that? My mother does that too. I find it weird.
Yes, I do that, and I put pens into the book, and sometimes at the edge of a pillow, whatever's there.
I never do that, by the way. I always remember what page I'm on. I always do. Ever since I'm a kid, I don't use bookmarks.
I read so many books, I always forget. At the same time, I read so many books at the same time, and I always forget.
So the paper finish, so when you take a German book in your hands and an English one right next to it, you will noticed that many English books have this very glossy finish a lot of times. You know, it's kind of shimmering in the light, which is pretty. I don't know. We Germans don't do that. We have matte finish. Or matte finish, I don't know how to call them. So it's not glossy. It's not, shimmering in the light. They are, but it adds a very nice feel to the hands, basically. So if you stroke a German book, it's supposed to feel nice, I guess. I think this is what it plays into. So this is something to consider. Don't go with the glossy thing. Go with the matte thing if you are deciding. If you really want to do glossy, we do that too, but it's not as common, I think.
One thing about that, when you have that matte finish, you actually often you have a partly glossy finish, like the title or parts of the cover are just highlighted with a glossy finish. I don't know the word for lack.
Layer. There's an additional layer on the book cover that gives it
parts of the book
that
cover.
Gives certain letters this glossy touch, but not the whole book itself.
And sometimes you can feel that finish as well. So you don't only see it, but you can feel it as well, and that's. Yeah.
I just noticed, actually, I think this is kind of the thing with German books, they're supposed to apply to like all senses, like to the smell, to the eyes, to the feel. Haven't tasted one though.
The taste, probably. I don't know. Yeah.
Shouldn't try. Maybe this is a new market. Books that can be eaten.
Oh no. For cookbooks, this might be interesting. So you can try what you're about to cook. Okay. This is and then a really important thing, which because German legal stuff is really huge. Freya can tell you more about that. But for books, it means that the copyright page, and here's another word you'll learn today in German, it is Impressum. It may be translated with imprint for, I think, magazines or stuff. They say imprint, newspapers. We say that in German for books as well. But I think in English it's the copyright page. And on the German Impressum, you don't only have like the copyright, but you have a lot of information on it. This is not a legal advice, but at least there should be an address where mail can be sent to, and you need stuff like the edition and the copyright and some disclaimers and where was the book printed and who's the publisher and stuff like that. So that's
basically who's responsible for that piece of work that you are holding in your hands. Everything is listed on there. Everyone.
Yes. Because if you're imagine you're just insulting somebody in that book, that person wants to know where to come and
like Germans
give you a jab.
If you insult Germans, if you say something like Germans are not smart enough to know what genre the book is they are buying, we want to know who to write an angry letter to.
We want to know who to sue for. Actually, that's more German.
I don't know if this is. Yeah.
Well, that's probably maybe it's more American to sue people for that, but Germans are, we tend to sue. Okay, Freya, the next point.
The next thing is something that's actually kind of necessary to have. It's not legally necessary, but I think if you want to have like a book that is taken seriously, you have to have a barcode on the back of the book. Where the book can be scanned, and this barcode has to comply with your ISBN number. So your book needs to be, in order to be properly published, it needs a ISBN number, and both this and a barcode that is compliant with that needs to be applied on the back of the book. And this is kind of necessary, I think. For instance, if you want to have a book in bookstores and they can scan this, they need to know which one. So get a barcode for yourselves, and this is actually really easily done, and it's very, very it's kind of expected on German books that you have a barcode on the back.
Yeah. Sorry. And we'll discuss this in a later episode about distribution. Yes.
Yes, and we also then have to talk about, because with the barcode also a lot of times also comes the book price, and in that whole thing you will learn a nice, really long German word which sounds very weird, Buchpreisbindung.
And you can look that up already.
This is an entire topic.
But we'll talk about that later.
If you want to.
So
I don't recommend
there's
it.
a reason why we put the price on the back of the cover quite often, and I think that's not true for English books, because the retailer actually puts the price on it. But we'll talk about that in another episode, because we're at, I think, more than 30 minutes already.
Yes.
And we promised something like 10 to 20, I remember.
Yep. But okay, but this is a huge point. We cannot stretch this enough. The way a print book looks and feels and smells and maybe tastes even is important. And it's something, if you want to be successful in the German market, something that you should put some effort in.
Yes, absolutely. So, as promised, for the next, or as already said, the next episode will be about the status quo of the self-publishing, in the German market. Please let us know if you have any thoughts on this, and please let us know what thoughts you have on that episode about we just recorded about the print book. Where do you live? Is in your country? Do you pay that much attention to the print editions of the books?
Yeah, and also if you have any questions, or disagree on some things, just let us know, because we are also still learning. We are kind of, stepping into the international world right here. And so if you have any info to share, please do. We are curious.
Yes, and remember, we want to connect and network with you. So just tell us who you are and say hi, and we'll say hi back, promised.
We will love to. So
have a beautiful day. Always remember,
take care.
You're an author if you want to be.
Yeah, and an international author as well, because you are listening to us.
Yes, absolutely. So bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. See you soon.